Welcome to the Mom Owned and Operated Podcast, the podcast about moms and for moms, where we have candid conversations about running a business, raising a family, and remembering ourselves. I'm your host, Rita Suzanne, a single mom of four, digital strategist, and provider of no-nonsense business strategies and tactics. Hi, this is Rita Suzanne, and today I have my guest, Yael, with me. Yael, I'm so excited to chat with you some more and get to know more about you, your business, and your family. Would you please give us a quick introduction and tell us more about you?
Sure. Okay. So hi, I'm Yael Bendahan. I am a New York expat. I live in Israel now, and I am a mom of five kids and have another one currently on the way. I started my business, back in 2017, I think. When my husband was like, we have four kids and only one income, and I think we need another one. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't even graduate high school. What do you want from me? And I started
Right.
down this journey of trying out all these different things. I did like photography and cake decorating and gift basket making. And finally I was like, maybe I could find something to do. I started like looking on Pinterest for like work at home ideas for moms. And the idea of blogging actually came up, and I was like, I could be a mommy blogger. So I learned all the skills to blog, which was great. And then I start a blog and I realized that a blog is not going to be an income strategy anytime soon. Like it takes time for this to grow. So my friend said to me, like, well, why don't you just become a virtual assistant for bloggers since you know all this stuff anyway? And I'd started that. I got my first client in a Facebook group. I was so excited. It was like $15 an hour. And I was like, check me out. I'm like a freaking tycoon. And I know, like, I think I was making like $300 a month. And I was like, $300 a month. It was like from dollars to shekels, it was a big deal. So I was like, it was significant enough that I was really excited. I remember saying to my mom at the time, like, I get like another couple clients like this. I could be making like $1,000 a month. And she goes, wow, that is like incredible.
Right.
You with your lack of any sort of higher education, like that's so exciting. So I ended up becoming a virtual assistant for bloggers. I started doing social media for them. Then I realized that actual businesses paid more for social media than bloggers did. Moved into doing more of that, like more speaking to business owners rather than bloggers, and started learning just all the stuff about online marketing and just completely fell in love with, ads and funnels and offers and launches and all that kind of stuff. I did like funnel building and ads and launch strategy, up until my daughter was born. So in 2020, I kind of shifted over. Um, I actually shifted into productizing my services more. Until then, I was trying to build this like all inclusive agency, which I realized after a while I didn't actually want. Like my whole idea was like this $1 million agency because that's what people in my world were doing. And I realized I don't actually want that. I don't want to deal with more team. I have enough team at home to deal with and people that I have to like boss around. I'm like, I don't need a lot more of these people. Like this is not for me. So I lean more into productized services, so doing more launch strategy, launch copy, and things like that. And I started adding on coaching in 2020. This was like during COVID. All four of my kids were home. I was pregnant with my daughter. And I was just like, I need something else. I need to shift into something else because like this is just not working for me with like my time zone. I'm 7 hours ahead of Eastern. So I was like, I just was getting tired. I was just getting burnt out from like doing sales calls late at night and just all working on other clients' timelines, and the practice services were really helping. But I also realized I really enjoy teaching. So in 2020, when I had her in July, I officially like closed down the service side of my business. I moved entirely into coaching. At the end of that year, I launched my first I launched my first coaching program in March 2020. And then I like revamped it, made it a whole official thing, had an actual webinar for it, relaunched it at the end of 2020, like December 2020, had like a 30K launch for that program. And then that's what it's been since then. I've been coaching moms to build their own six-figure service-based businesses without burning out. Because I did the burnout way first, and then I did it the non-burnout way, and I figured out how to do it the non-burnout way. And that's what I help them do.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Is a lot.
Pardon me. Um, to do any type of service, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that it's a long-term thing for a lot of people. I was a web designer for forever until I started. I think in 2020 was when I decided, like, okay, I don't think that I can do services anymore. It's just so draining for me. And, especially when you have a lot of kids. So I can imagine having 5 kids, especially with a newborn, and then launching a new service and having that, I guess, insecurity of switching over and pivoting, because a lot of time the pivot is so hard and so stressful. Would you say, like, or did you feel like it came easy to you?
Ooh. So, and it's just, it actually wasn't the actual services that was as much the issue for me. It was just the, because of my time zone, I just
Hmm.
found that it was very hard for me to be on my clients' timelines the way that like they needed me to be.
Hmm.
And I do think that you can do services in a way that don't burn you out. Like I've still done like VIP days. Like I build content strategies for people and I've done like built launch strategies for people. Like that is my own, and I
Right.
still have done copy. I did copy, occasionally like for other people, like over the years. But I'm able to do it like kind of like on my terms, so to speak. And I really do
Hmm.
think like even with web design or something, like you can do it in a way that like it's your party. And I think very often service providers go into providing services with kind of still like a little bit of an employee mentality, a little bit. So it's like, okay, but what do you need and whatever, but you need this by then, and how can we do this? And so it does become very draining because you're running your own business, but you're acting towards your clients a little bit they're your boss. And I think
Right.
and I work really hard. Like that's why my whole program is called CEO Mom Academy, CEO Mom Mastermind, because it's about being the CEO of your business, being the CEO of your home also, because I have to run my house like like a CEO. I have a whole team. I train them in. Not everyone does everything perfectly, but like it needs to happen if everything needs to get done.
Yeah.
Um, but I also I didn't kind of jump straight from one thing to the other. I added on, so January 2020 was my lowest month probably in like over a year at
Hmm.
least. I made like $2,000 because I was in my first trimester of pregnancy. I was so sick. I also like fell into depression because I have a tendency towards that. And it was a really, really, really hard period. So I basically went like completely radio silent on social media and I stopped promoting anything. I was just, my friends were literally like reaching out to me, like, are you alive? Like, what is going on with you? And I realized that like the way I was running my business was not sustainable because if I was not working all the time, I would not make
Hmm.
any money. And I was like, well, I need to set something up that enables me to make money even if I'm not working, if something like this happens again, right? Or
Right.
if I have a baby, which I will be in 6 months. And so at that point, I switched from doing like all the things, like I was offering funnel building and doing launches and ads and all this kind of stuff. And I said, I'm doing launch strategy and launch copy. That is what I'm
Hmm.
doing. I will help you plan out your whole launch. We'll work on the timelines, work on everything. I will write all your copy for you. And that is where my job ends. And I was
Right.
like, and it was so relaxing for me. And so February ended up being a 15K cash month. And then in March, I launched my first group program, which was a 3-month group program, which ended up being a 20K cash month,
Hmm.
with a mix of the services and the coaching. And I continued to mix the two until July when I had her. Then in July, I actually sold my first mastermind to the people who were in my coaching program. I got 3 women in. And then I also had a bunch of payment plans coming in from other stuff that I've been selling throughout the time. And that was like my first mastermind. It was so exciting. It was the best thing ever. I'm still in touch. One of those women right now is the copy coach in my current mastermind. So she's amazing.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't like this like switch like this. I was able to kind of, while I was still doing the services, I was like inching into that world of coaching and teaching. And so it didn't feel so scary because I was like, oh, I already proved that I could do it,
Yeah.
And so it was scary to let go entirely of the service. I'm not, it was, it was like, that was like, I know I can make money that way. Like that for me, selling services, it's funny. I don't sell coaching on sales calls. Like I don't really do coach. I don't think I've ever sold coaching on a sales call ever, actually. I've always done it in the
Hmm.
DMs because literally like when I sold my program, it was March. it was March 2020. So it was like around before Passover time. And I didn't have time to get on calls with anyone because I was busy cleaning my house. So I was just like, listen, if you have any questions, please just DM me. Here's the link. And I'm happy to chat back and forth with you on voice notes. Before I even knew DM selling was a thing, by the way, I'm like, I don't have time to get on a sales call, but like, I'm happy to go back and forth with you as much as you need to discuss it. Right. And I got a whole bunch of women into there. I think it was like between 7 and 10. I forgot exactly how many. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I don't even need to do sales calls for this. So I actually, the services was something like I knew how to do. The coaching was a little bit newer, but because of that, I was able to just like ease into it. And
Mhm.
so when I had that big launch, I actually joined a coaching program to help me build that whole high ticket sales ecosystem, whatever, that whole system. I joined it in October.
Yeah.
It was like 20K. I paid in full. And I made like, I made my money back like 1.5x, like by December, like I think it was 8 weeks later. It was really great validation though. I'm like, okay, so I know I have something that people need, people want,
Mhm.
and I know I can sell it. And so I didn't really look back from there.
I think that I will like I want to say, what is the word? I will just basically get on here and talk about how, as a service provider, having just straight services was the worst thing for
Yeah.
me in the world. However, when I pivoted and started doing VIP days, that was when I started making the most money I had ever made. And so I can just validate that VIP days, if you're a service provider, best thing to do,
Yeah.
right? Best
I
way
love
to
it.
go. And now, because I was so successful in like doing VIP days, like I teach people how to make their own offers into VIP days because of how I think it just changed my whole life doing the VIP days, because otherwise I was dying. I was drowning in client work, right? Because like you mentioned, I had basically that mentality that I think a lot of women have when they first start their businesses. There's a lot of people pleasing in
Yeah.
there, and there's no boundaries because you want to make the client happy. And so, even though the client seems happy, if they ask for something else, you don't say, okay, yeah, I can do that, but it's going to cost you extra. You just do it. Right. So
Right.
you suck it up and you do it. And then at the same time, you don't have just one boss, you have about 15 bosses.
Right.
And and all those bosses are at the same time screaming to you like, I want my thing, I want my thing, but you can't, it's hard to juggle all of those. And then simultaneously, you need to be looking for more clients, right? Because you
Right.
need to have that income continuously coming in. And so once I had started doing the VIP days, I think it was in 2019 that I started doing them. They tremendously changed my business and my life, as a whole. So I can
Yeah.
definitely say, like, if you're going to do any type of service, I think that VIP days are the way to go in order to
Yeah.
retain your sanity, especially if you have children and multiple um, responsibilities, right?
Yeah. No, I totally hear that. And that's why I basically teach productized services, which is essentially like I think that people also get like very nervous because I think also I had clients who are like very creative, right? And like they're like, I can't be creative in a day. Like I need time to like percolate and think. And I'm like, okay, so do a week or do a month, right? But having a very designated like block, whatever that block is, that is productized, like this is what you get and this is
Mm-hmm.
how you get it. You can add on this or add on that if you want to, and you're going to pay for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's very, very specific and in a very, very specific timeline because
Right.
when you have this, and I think the timeline is the most important thing, no matter what that is, whether it's a day, whether it's a week, right? Because that timeline it also gives you the ability to figure out how many clients you can hold at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how to charge accordingly for that. And it also gives the clients like, do you know how many times you just sit and how many times you just sit and wait for a client to get back to you to approve something or like just
Right.
give you the copy for this or give you the copy for that or be like, and you're just like, and if you're like, listen, I'm giving you like this week, right? So this has to be done by this week. So you need to be available to answer my questions during this week. You need to be available to look at the
Mm-hmm.
stuff within 24 hours, right? And so it will also the client will value your time more as well because you're creating that boundary for them. So yeah, I totally agree. Like I used to do VIP days, then I couldn't do them anymore because I had a baby. So I
Right.
started doing was like a split VIP day where I do an intro call one evening, and then I
Mm-hmm.
would do all the work the next day while she was around. I had her home with me for the first year. That was my best year of business, like to date until then. Like I made almost 200K that year, and I was working like maybe 2 to 4 hours a day,
Love
and
it.
she was home with me the whole time, right? So I would just get my work done throughout the day, and then we'd have a wrap up call the next evening, and so it was like a 24-hour period, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like a straight full day because that was what worked for my time zone, and that was what worked for my life.
Right.
So I think
Right.
that you can be really creative about it and still be able to keep really firm boundaries that feel really good to you and work with your schedule and work with your life.
Yeah, and I agree. Like if you can't split it up, I have clients where I've split it up and made it a week or seeming like a week. But what I, have tried to say is like, for me, I will do my strategy call like 7 days prior to their actual start date. And during that strategy call, like I've already gotten all of their stuff that they need to turn in and all of the things, all the images and all of that stuff. So during the strategy, you're like, we're just reviewing it. That I feel like for me gave me enough time to kind of digest everything. And then when the
Yeah.
VIP days happened, then I was able to like do the work, and my clients were available to give me feedback right away that day because we had scheduled that time to be together. And I think
Right.
that other than that, it was, before when I was just working services in the wild, it was, you wait 2 or 3 days for some feedback. And by then you've kind of lost momentum and moved on to another client.
Yeah.
And so whoever thought of putting VIP days into a a service was a genius, and
Yeah.
has definitely changed my life. So I was looking over your services or your groups earlier, and so I'm wondering what is the difference between the CEO Mom Mastermind and the Academy? What's the difference?
Yeah, it's a very, very easy difference. So the CEO Mom Academy is more for service providers who are more like the 1 to 3K a month level that te typically are either virtual assistants who are selling like hourly packages or like, I do all these things,
Right.
and just kind of like, they don't, they're booked out. Oh, I did the thing with the balloons. They're booked out. I almost did it. They're technically like booked out, but they're still not hitting their income goals because they just hit their hourly cap. And I think like especially for moms, okay, like you cannot work hourly because you will not have enough hours to make the money that you want to make unless you're charging like $500 an hour, which whatever. Like I really, really feel that I'm very, very, very against that. So the CEO Mom Academy teaches them how to turn their services, create a signature offer, get really clear on the messaging and the ideal client for the signature offer, turn it into a productized, turn their service into a productized service and be known for a very specific thing. And so that they can book themselves out without burning out and still be able to hit their income goals. So they, hold, 2 clients a month, but if each client is $5,000 instead of, $1,000, then they don't need to be like, oh my God, like this is too much. I can't. Right. So the CEO Mom Academy is more for teaching them how to upgrade their services and how to market consistently, how to get their message across, how to just upgrade their mindset and their offers to speak to a more premium buyer in general. And the CEO Mom Mastermind is for those women who they're already making money. They know how to make money. They've maybe had 5K, 10K months already. They just want to be
Mhm.
more consistent and they want to expand beyond that. So they're like, okay, I know I can sell services. I've done that already, but now I want to make some money without selling services. Maybe I want to have a membership, or I want to launch a course, or I want to expand past that, maybe start coaching. Or for one-to-one coaches, they're like, I want to start, maybe launch a group program or create some funnels. So the CEO Mastermind is much more, the academy is much more like curriculum based, or the mastermind is much more customized to, okay, where are you now? What is your goal? How can we work this around your lifestyle? The the academy is also around your lifestyle because you're going to decide, like, and I actually give like 10 of my favorite types of offers for moms to offer
Mhm.
in there that, like, depending on your audience size and depending on how much childcare you have available, like I literally like break it down like that because I'm like, you have to decide which ones actually make sense. Like you could be like, oh, I want to do VIP days, but I can assure you with a newborn, you cannot do VIP days. I
Yeah.
tried it. I did it
Or
once.
a
I was like,
toddler.
never again. So, so you just need to know what makes sense for you. And then, the goal is for the people from the academy to get to the place of the mastermind to be able to move up to there. So yeah. So it's definitely like it's a two-stage sort of thing.
I love that you break it down into audience size too, because I think that's important for people to realize, like, creating products and coaching programs is great, but more so, like, let's focus on products for a second. You can create a bunch of digital products, but if you don't have an audience for that, then it's going to be hard for you to sell, and then that's going to be really discouraging, I
Yeah.
think. And so taking into account, like, how big your audience is, and then creating the products or services or offers that kind of coincide with them is really strategic and very smart.
Thank you. No, and I actually do teach them. I'm like, from like I have them from, like, once they know what their signature offer is and they're really, really clear on that, they're really clear on the messaging, I do have them create a front end lead funnel for that. Because I'm like, do as I say, not as I did. As a service
Right.
provider, I did not work on growing my email list. And I sincerely regret that, because there were so many years I could have been growing it and I didn't. Right. But I think that you can, I think you can make six figures very relatively easily with a very small audience. Like, I don't think you
Yeah.
need a big audience to make six figures. But if you do want to scale beyond that, and especially if you do want to add things like memberships or lower ticket products, or even a course, I cannot even begin to, like, oh my God, the amount of people who are like, oh, just, have a six-figure business and launch a course. I'm like, you can't launch a course. Like, I had a client who was like,
Your
I
audience.
want to sell a $497 course. And I want to make $10,000 a month. And I was like, okay, let's do some
And
numbers
you're
here.
brand new.
Okay, let's do some numbers here, because I'm like, first of all, if you need $10,000 a month, that means you're selling 20 courses a month at least, right? And you need to spend money on ads, probably because your audience is not very big. You need to get in front of more people. Yes. Okay, great. So how much money are you spending on ads? Is this $10,000 before or after ad spend, right? And then I'm like, so you actually need to make more than 20 sales. And if you're doing a webinar, how many people need to come to that webinar? And like,
Yeah.
brought it back. We're like, okay, she needed, like, I don't know, 10,000 people a month to like see her webinar page
Right.
before she like hit her like 10,000 goal, like above and beyond ad spend, right? And so I really think that, like, the best thing, I personally think the best thing to do is to start off with services, a productized service with boundaries, right? Very specifically geared towards a premium buyer. Use that as your financial foundation. And once you have that financial foundation, and you're growing your list because you're known for something, you have a signature offer, you have a lead magnet, you're getting in front of more people, you are growing your email list, amazing. Then launch a course and validate it, not in a place where you're like, oh my God, if I don't sell this course, I'm not going to pay my mortgage, right? Like, no, it's fine. I have the money. I'm validating the course. Oh, it did really well. Amazing. Now I can maybe start running ads to it, right? So I do think that makes the most sense, if you're a mom, especially because you need to have the financial security to take risks. Like, if you want to put yourself out there, you want to launch something new, do something new. I really do think that, like, we're not the same as a single woman who's like, oh, I'll just take my last money and fly to Bali, and and then we'll see how it goes from there, right? Like, we have people to take care of and we have responsibilities. And so it's going to be very hard to be like, okay, if I launch this and I break even, it's okay because I validated the offer and now I can launch it again, right? Like, it's gonna be very hard to be calm around that if you're depending on that for your main income. Whereas if you already have the foundation of the services, you are really able to add on the other stuff without feeling like freaked out and like,
Right.
oh my God, like, this is not working. So I feel really strongly about that. Like, please don't start with a course.
I think that's very important. And then two, I remember when I started in 2014, and I always wanted to teach, right? And that was my main goal. But in my mind, I said, I can't teach something that I don't really know. Right.
Right.
So how could I teach somebody how to do, let's just say, web design, because that's what I was doing, if I don't really know the ins and outs of running a website design business, So I thought to myself, well, you just need to get in there, get in the trenches, learn it. And then once you learn it and you're more comfortable, then you can start teaching. And I think that oftentimes some people who I've seen will come in and start trying to teach right away. And it's like, well, what kind of business have you had? Like, what have you done besides, have a job?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, you don't really have the experience in this field necessarily in order to sell.
Yeah. I mean, the first product, I just sold a masterclass. The first masterclass I sold, and this was a huge thing for me because this was the first time I sold something and like it didn't take like the work of my hands to deliver
Mm,
it afterwards, which was so exciting. I sold a $97 LinkedIn masterclass about how to generate leads on LinkedIn because I've been generating leads on LinkedIn for like 2 years. And that was where I was getting a lot of my clients. Like they were coming from either Facebook groups, referrals, or LinkedIn. Those are my three main places. And
yeah.
so I was like, I should do a class on this. And I did it. I launched it properly. My email list was I mean, I don't think it was more than 500 people, probably less than that. I don't think it was a lot. The business was like in June 2019, I think. I launched it to my list. I launched it on Facebook too. Um, I was like, yes, buy it. 20 people bought it. I made $2,000 in 2 hours, basically, of work. And I was like, this is so cool. It was such an epiphany. I'm like, wow, people will actually pay me for like my information. And then
Right.
that November, literally right after I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, I took the master class, turned it into like a mini course, added a bunch of bonuses, sold it for Black Friday. I forgot that it was Black Friday because I was here in Israel. It's not like such a big deal here. And my sister
Right.
just got married that week. So I was like totally like, I'm gonna have this out by the end of November. And I'm like, shoot, that's the end of November. And then I realized it was Black Friday on Friday. And I'm like, shoot, no one's gonna buy this because it's gonna just get lost in like the Black Friday inboxes of like whatever. I made $4,000 in 1 week from a
Right.
$37 masterclass. And I think it was like a 90 or 77 or $97 upsell. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, wow, like this is like actually working. This is actually working. And that was when I first, and I think that was what gave me the idea. This was when I just got pregnant. And when I kind of emerged from like that first trimester fog, I was like, okay, but like, yes, I've been selling services, but people will pay me for
Right.
my brain. And that was
Mhm.
it's a big mental shift for people, especially for service providers. It is very, very hard to do that mental shift from saying, oh, people will pay me for the work of my hands, which makes sense. Like mentally, it makes sense to them.
Mhm.
Then going to like, oh, people will just pay me for just my brain. Like I
Right.
could just tell them stuff
Right.
and they'll pay me for that. Right. And
Yeah.
that was like a huge
But
mental everything.
I'm sure, and I think that this goes hand in hand. It built up your confidence, right? And
Oh, for
so
sure.
selling the first product at 97, you were like, okay, like I can do this. This is
Yeah.
it. And then you said, okay, I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do
Yeah.
it again, and I'm going to do it again. And I think that that's what happens. Like, and oftentimes, though, have you noticed this where people they'll make this whole big thing, right? And they'll try to sell it and then it flops. And then they're like, oh, shoot, what do
Yeah.
I do now?
I've
And
had
then
those.
right. And then they try to pivot and then the next pivot fails. And then their confidence starts to get waned in. And I think that that's another aspect of running an online business, right? Is because you think, oh my gosh, I have this great thing and I've like come up with the next big thing, and then it just is like wah, wah, and I think that that's a reality of our business too, is like,
For
it's
sure.
not necessarily going, no matter how big your audience is like, there are going to be the bad times and there's going to be the good times, and hopefully there's going to be more good, and that's going to boost your confidence in order to get past all of the other failures that may happen as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think especially now, right now in 2024, number one, there's so many more people in the online space than there were like a few years ago because of 2020, right? People quit their jobs or got fired and went online and were like, ooh, maybe we can start an online business. So many of those like just faded out, right? And some of them just stayed. And it was, and so there's a lot more people in the market. There's also AI is a big thing now, right? So people are like, oh, we could do everything with AI. I freaking hate GPT. And I'm like, I use it occasionally. Like I'll use like I actually use Claude more than ChatGPT. I'll use it to like summarize my old Facebook live so I can turn them into because I want to re-record them as podcasts. Like I'll take, hey, take this video, please summarize it for me so I can just take this outline and then just re-record it again. But I really, really do believe so because of that, I think that messaging has to be so much more clear and so much more on point, right? Just saying 10K months is not going to be enough anymore because everyone's saying 10K months and like especially with these MRR, like those courses that everyone's like, oh, I made $2 million in the past 6 months. And I'm like, I don't think you did, because I'm pretty
Right.
sure that the people who taught them this were like, yeah, use my results to sell this. Right.
Mm.
I have a feeling. I
Share
can't
the
verify.
screenshots or something.
I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it, so I couldn't tell you, but I have a feeling. 'Cause I'm like, there can't be so many people who made $1
That
million
much.
in 6 months selling the same course. Like, it's impossible. Like, it's literally,
Right.
I don't know. I don't see that. So I I think that things are people are savvier. Okay.
Mhm.
So um they are not buying as quickly as they used to
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So I definitely had like flops, and like I did a birthday sale last year, and it was like, like, like a few sales, nothing like, I did a Black Friday sale end of 2022, and that like was like gangbusters. I made like 10, I actually made like 15K actually, because I made 10K from the actual sale, and then someone upgraded to my group
Nice.
program for 5K. So like that was like awesome. And I was like, wow, this worked so well. And I did it again a few months later and it didn't work. Right. So I think that it really is a matter of like looking at the market, but also being really, really, really clear on how your thing is different. And I'm actually I'm going into March. I'm doing this challenge called Stand Out and Sell, where I teach you how to build your signature framework. Because I'm like, if you have a signature framework and you can define why this signature framework is different than other things in the market and why this speaks directly to your perfect person, right? You will have so much more confidence, so much more authority behind
Mhm.
your marketing, behind your sales. You can get on sales calls knowing like this is how you do things, and you do it for a reason, and it's in this order for a reason, and it's for this person for a reason. And you have so much more authority, and that comes through for sure. But definitely like having those dips is definitely going to make you like, I know it definitely made me lose confidence, right? And be like, oh my God, like
Right.
is anything I
Right.
even sell gonna sell anymore? And it's
Right.
it's scary. But I really do think
Right.
that like if you stay the course,
Yeah.
people are still gonna fall off because it is not easy. It's not easy to
Right.
be an entrepreneur. So I really think that people who really just kind of hold to it, get really clear on their messaging, get really clear on the person they're speaking to, get like really, really specific with the specific situations that they help with, right?
Yeah.
Like knowing exactly what their ideal client's day looks like and exactly how they're going to change their ideal client's day with their thing. I really think that is going to be the thing that really stands out, and just being real also. Like because of AI, like I can spot a ChatGPT post like a mile away. Like a
Right.
mile away, right? So
First of
like
all, it has a million emojis in it, right?
emojis and words that like no one ever uses. And like,
Right.
unleash the elevation of and I'm like, okay, I'm like, yeah, bye.
If
Like
you're
I'm not even reading past the first.
right.
Yeah.
If you're going to use something like an AI, read over it. I mean, because I do branding now instead of
Yeah.
design. I just focus on branding. And so, I will, and I'm not even, I love AI and all of that. And I think it's helpful for me because it helps me get an outline, but I don't
Right.
rely on it to write all of my stuff. It just really is about encouraging me, producing more ideas and things like
Right.
that.
Right.
Because
Using
if
it as
you're
a helper is different than trying to
yeah,
replace yourself entirely,
yeah,
I think.
you can't use it to write all of your stuff because it doesn't make sense. And then in that case, it won't connect with your target audience, no matter how
Yeah.
much you say, hey, my target audience is moms. And then it starts adding these weird analogies and metaphors and things in
Right.
there. And you're like, what? Like, I
Yeah.
would never say that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
exactly. And I'm saying I can like, when I see captions, I can tell if I can tell it's written by AI in the first like couple of sentences, I'm not even going to keep reading it. So like you lost me
right,
already, right?
right,
Which is such a shame. And so I
right.
really, really do think that being a real person, right, and showing the real person behind what you're doing, showing your face, showing like that you have, real stories, being imperfect, right,
Yeah.
is ironically
But
going to be the thing that's
also,
going to set you apart.
but also, I think that people need to start putting out quality content, like when it comes to their products and services and stuff, and actually giving quality versus like I've seen some people's digital products and that was chat gtp
Yeah.
or it was just not put together well. And
Yeah.
so I just feel like just offer benefits, and that if that means that you can only produce one product versus the other person's five shitty ones, hey, that's fine. Yours is quality, and that person is probably going to remember yours more than the five
Yeah.
shitty ones.
No, for sure. And it's funny. I literally had this conversation with a client like a couple of weeks ago because we were talking about audience growth in the mastermind and we were creating our audience growth plans. And she was like, so I think I'm going to do a blog post. I'm going to create a new lead magnet every week for each blog post. And I was like, wait. Like, 1 second. I was like, I would rather you create, like, she has two target audiences. She has two, like, kind of separate audiences, like two ideal clients, so to speak. So I was like, I would rather you work really hard and create two really, really great lead magnets, one for this one for this one, and then focus your quantity on the content leading towards those things. So you can test different hooks and see what's working, like for traffic purposes. But yeah, 100%. Listen, I got a lead magnet from a very well-known coach in the industry, and it was like promising. I was like, I'm going to tell you exactly how I made $500,000 in blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, like, tell me how, like, go for it.
Tell
Right.
me.
And I was like, so I get
I'm
it. I download it. And I was so unbelievably underwhelmed. Like I've never been so underwhelmed by a lead magnet in my life. And it's funny because I liked her content and her stuff looked intriguing. And I had, she's like one of those coaches I had like in the back of my mind, like maybe I'll work with her one day, you know, like maybe not for sure, but maybe. This took her completely off the list. I was like, this is the most generic lead magnet I've ever seen in my entire life. Like I would maybe put this out. I don't even know if I'll put this out as a blog post. I maybe make it as like a piece of social media content that's going to disappear in 5 minutes. But like, it definitely would not be a lead magnet because yeah, exactly. Like I think one of my best lead magnets is my high ticket offer matrix for moms, which is like what I told you. Like it's the free lesson I took out of CEO Mom Academy with my 10 favorite offers. And it is training, which is about half an hour long, walking through all 10 of the offers. And it's a matrix, like a worksheet that they can actually fill out for themselves. And like, I would like that to me should be paid. Like it is worth money. Right. And so I want like all my lead magnets to feel like they're worth money.
Right.
And I would
that's
pay for
what
this.
they should. Right. And that's what they should be. And I've actually purchased from well-known coaches, purchased like their little like $30 this or that, and expected it to be, actually valuable, like you with your free stuff. And I was like, unfollow. Like I have zero interest in her because she lost all credibility for me at this point. Because if you're willing to sell this, and one of them was this person, she was walking down the street and she was streaming something while she's walking. It was basically a Facebook Live that she then turned around and sold for $29. I was very, very frustrated.
That is very frustrating. Like I need something I can listen to on my phone while doing other things. It has to be like quality audio at the very least. Like I need to be able to hear what's going on. Right. Yeah. And like, no. And it's not even about the production. Like I will happily, like I would bought things from coaches that was like a Google Doc turned into a PDF, but it was so valuable because the content was so valuable. They were like, here's exactly what I did to do this. I'm like, okay. And they gave me exactly what I did to do that. And I'm like, this is great. And I don't need a fancy PDF from Canva or whatever. Like, I don't need that. And I think that people very often get like really hung up on like, oh, it needs to look perfect. It needs to be this. I'm like, you really, really, really don't. Like most of my stuff is actually Google Docs because I'm like, I prefer Google Docs as a lead magnet, honestly, because I can download it. I can edit it. I can fill it in. I hate having to print things out. Right. And so it's not even about like the production. It's about the content. Right. And like, is this actually going to move me a step forward?
I don't know who taught this, but what I think what it is like people have been taught to provide very vague lead magnets so that the download person, whoever's downloading, will then come to you for the actual step-by-step. Right. I think that that's what it is because a lot of these lead magnets are like that. They're very vague, just, very broad strokes. There's not a lot of value inside of it. It's stuff that you can find for free on the internet, and that's fine. I'm getting it for free, but in exchange for my email address, right? So that you could then try to market to me and sell me on something. So because it is an exchange, I expect a little bit more value than something that I could Google and find out in 5 seconds.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that people are very much like, sell the what, share the what and sell the how. Right. Yeah. And I think that like, there has to be a little bit of how in there. Like there needs to be some, and I'm not saying you have to like give away, like, I don't think you need to give away everything, for
No,
sure not.
yeah,
You shouldn't give away everything. But
yeah,
like isn't even for service providers, for example, like that's the easiest thing to sell because you could give the how and it doesn't even matter because people don't want to know how to do it. If they're gonna hire you, they want you to do it for them. Like you could be like,
right.
how I built this really amazing website. Okay, great. And now I know you know how to build a really amazing website. Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Please do it for me. Right. For coaches and course creators, it's a little bit different because they're like, I don't want to give away everything. Right. I don't want to. That was why I specifically, I'm like, I'm pulling a free lesson
But let
out of
me have
my
like
thing.
like let me have
Yeah.
some like small takeaway that I can actually implement now and be like,
Yes. It
oh
has
my
to be
God,
implementable. Yeah.
Yael's
Like I
taught
can go
me
and do a
so
thing.
much stuff. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I was able to take that away. I'm definitely not saying don't do everything for free, or anything like that. But there has to be some value. Like, come
Yeah.
on. Has to be
Yeah.
something to implement. Or if there's not, then you're probably not a good fit for them anyways.
Right. For
So,
sure. No. And I think God, I'm very lucky because I am in the worlds of a lot of coaches who do give really, really good stuff. Right. And I really try to model after that and be like, okay, like, how can when I download that thing, I felt like it was so worth my email, right?
yeah.
Like, I feel like I would probably pay $10, $20 for this, right? Like, so how
Mhm.
can I make people feel the same way about my thing? And
Yeah.
again, it's going to be a little different. Like that's why I'm saying it's a mental leap from being a service provider to doing coaching, consulting, digital products, because you're the way you have to think about things it shifts. It just mentally shifts for you. And
Yeah.
that's why I have the mastermind is because it's not going to always be done the same way because one person will be like, oh, I want to have a membership. One
Right.
person will be like, I want to launch a course, right? So
Yeah.
it's going to have to be different for each person. And I want to be able to like give the room, like I don't do like these group programs like how to launch a course, right?
Hmm.
This is the way to do it, and this is the only you can't do that because it's going to be different for every mom. And I want to be able to like have this space. I felt very constrained. Like CMA used to be like my main curriculum for my main group program, but I was feeling very constrained by that curriculum because I'm like technically right now I would tell you to probably launch a product. You're doing so well, but launching a product is not in here because that's not what this program is about. Right? So like,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so that's why the mastermind gives me more space to be able to coach my clients in a more customized way, like around their specific business and be like,
Right.
okay, here's a thing. And here's curriculum for my other thing. Here's my flash launch, email series. Here's my whatever. And I can pull things in so it's much more customized and in depth because it's going to be a mental shift and it's going to take some mindset work as well to be like whereas I would say I mean case studies work for sure but I've done case studies. I've done case study posts. People have still hired me as a coach because you know
Mm-hmm.
what, they might try to do it and I'm going to share exactly what they did. Like I'd be like, here, I had this client and she was, she had a group program and she wanted to get more. She was not getting enough sales calls booked. She had people downloading her, signing up for a webinar. And so that was doing really well. But she was not getting enough sales calls booked and she was not making enough sales. So what we did was we looked at her webinar, right? Because her conversion rate was great. I'm like, okay, great. The messaging on the front end is fine. But the problem is that the webinar wasn't converting for a certain reason. Whatever, let's fix this. We fixed a couple things. We fixed the way she pitched. We set the stage more for the sales call. Whatever. She booked 9 clients in 1 month. The month after that, right? Like I can tell them exactly like what I did, and it doesn't even matter because everyone's going to be different, and
Right.
everyone's going to, it's not. You can't take anything that someone else did and do the exact same thing, expect the same result because you can have a different offer, you can have a different audience. So
Right.
I really do think you can give things away. You can really give things away to an extent, while still being able to stand in your authority as the expert, and still make money for
No,
sure.
I definitely agree. So let's pivot a little and talk about how you are able to run this business and run raise your family at the same time because you do have a lot going on over there. And then
Yes.
plus, and then kind of managing the time zone difference. Like, how are you able to do all of that and, still be successful at your business?
Okay, so well, obviously, like I said, there were years and there were years, right? So like, um, the year I the year my daughter was born, like was actually a really, really great year. And the first year she was home with me. And the year after that, I had another episode of depression that really like pushed me down for like 6 months or so. Like it was like really, really hard. So you have to also like understand like you're going to be a human being, and you know there's going to be general ups and downs like in your life as well, and that will affect your business to an extent. And the best thing you can do is try to set things up, obviously, so things can run without you, but you're not going to always necessarily have that. What I will say is that I have 4 boys, 14, 12, 10, and 8, and my daughter who's 3. Um, my husband works very, very, very full time. Like he's a paramedic. He works shifts, so he's not reliably home at any point. Like right now he's on a 24-hour shift in the Dead Sea. So like he left this morning, I'll see him tomorrow. Like it was just like, so it's very much me and the kids at home most of the time. So number one is I always say like running your home like a CEO, right? So I always compare like teaching kids to do chores like hiring a new virtual assistant. So at the beginning, it's going to be really hard because you can do it better yourself and you can do it faster yourself. And you're like, why did I even do this? And why did I even try? This is so frustrating. But if you really push through and you really get through like that over that hump, then it's going to work out really well for you because they're going to know how to do things. And they might not do things exactly the way you would do it. They'll probably do it like 80% of the way, maybe 70% of the way you do it. But at least it's getting done and you're not doing it yourself, right? So a while ago, like I unsubscribed from putting away my kids' laundry. I was like, okay, this is my new thing. I'm washing the laundry. I'm drying the laundry. Each of you get a basket. I'm sorting it into your personal baskets. Because what happens, right? You do the laundry. There's this basket like this of like clean, dry clothing in the hallway or something. And in the morning, people are like, I can't find my socks. I can't find this and I can't find that. So I was like, okay, we're not doing that anymore. But I'm also no longer putting away your stuff. So you're all going to learn how to fold laundry. I taught them how to fold laundry. They don't even fold it that well anymore or whatever. Sometimes they just stuff it in their drawer. I'm like, I don't even care. I'm like, I don't see your drawer. I don't need to be in there. If you want to wear a crumpled shirt, like be my guest. But I sort it, I dry it, I wash it, I dry it, I put it into their own baskets. That way I know, and they know, that if they're looking for clothes, it's either in their drawer or in their basket.
Yeah.
And the only people I fold and put away are mine, my husband's, and my daughter's. And she's eventually gonna do her, fold her own laundry too. So like that's one thing that I just kind of like, I realized I was getting so overwhelmed just like by laundry. Like laundry felt like it was running my life. And I was like, this is ridiculous because I'm not the only person with 2 hands in this family. So, and you know what? The fact is, like, they'll fetch, like they'll be like, it's not fair, and you're the only mother who ever makes this work, and no one else does ever does anything else. I'm like, yes, I know. Poor thing. Poor you. Like my heart bleeds. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this is important because you're gonna have to learn how to grow up and learn how to do laundry one day. So you may as well learn now. And, also like things like, I think kids are capable of so much more than you think they are. We assume that they can't do things, I will say, I assume my oldest son can do more things than, earlier on than like, I'll assume my youngest son can do. Like my youngest son, like he just seems so small to me still compared to like my oldest because he's so much bigger than him. And I'm like, no, but he's still little. He can't, make his bed. And then I'm like, of course he can make. My oldest son was making his bed when he was 8. Why do I think he can't make his bed? So we definitely have different attitudes towards different children. So there is, we have weekly chores, which they kind of rotate through. Again, does it get done perfectly all the time? Everyone, no, it doesn't. But like for the most part, 80% of the time does get done, and I don't have to do it. I do a lot of other things. I know I'm cleaning up the house during the day. I do cooking. to make sure all the laundry's in the right place. I think that it's a really important thing to realize that like you are not the only person. And even if your kids are little, yes, they're not going to be so helpful right now, but eventually, like if you set the standard now that when they're small, that like everyone helps and everyone pitches in to whatever extent that they can, right? Like then
they can still clean up, in certain
for sure they can. Listen, my 3-year-old does clean up. Like she can clean up her room.
Yeah.
She makes her bed, with her little blanket, right? So she, obviously she is the baby, so she just naturally has less responsibility. But I really think that I think that we really, really underestimate our children on the whole. And I think that, yes, they're going to complain about it. But you know what? Like, listen, I grew up, I'm the oldest of 6 also. I did a lot of stuff growing up and I complained about it. And when it came down to it, I don't know, like I still can't see my mother doing stuff and just sit down and watch her do it. like I'm going to always just get up and it's automatic. And I don't think that that's the worst thing as a human being and part of society to be like, So And I don't feel like taken advantage of as a child or anything. I'm like, yeah, we were a family. We all lived in the house and everyone did their jobs. And like, that's just how it works. Right. And so, and especially because I have boys, especially because of this, I really, really, really want I want to raise them to understand that there's just jobs that need to get done. Um, and yes, mothers do tend to take on more of the household mental load and workload naturally because they tend to be around more that, usually, right? Not always, but usually. But there's no like, oh, but I don't do that because it's not my job, right? That's not my problem, right? Like there's stuff that needs to get done in the house. It's everyone's problem. So everyone's going to bitch in and that's just how it is. And it was, and with my husband as well, like, when he is around, it was definitely a shift because I was a stay-at-home mom and he worked. So I did most of this. I did like 80 to 90% of everything because I was home and he wasn't, right? So like it just naturally happened that way. But as I started working more and whatever, he over time, like gradually started taking on more stuff. And it was a hard shift for him as well. It was a hard shift because he grew up in a very like patriarchal home as well, where it was just very, there are very, very specific roles and stuff. And I did too. I'm saying my mom was also stay-at-home mom. My dad worked, so it was the same thing. But if he was around, he would help. And so my husband, if he is around, he will help, right? So like it's not like it's, So I think that's really, really important. Is number one, kind of just like realizing that you're not the only person in the house, and so you should, you can organize it and delegate appropriately, right? Appropriately, to make stuff happen. I also am very like schedule wise, I work very much according to my energetic like capacities.
Right. Yeah.
Because like I know, like for example, like people are like, oh, wake up early and get stuff done or like whatever. And like now I'm pregnant, so I'm out of breath. I'm pregnant, so I can't stay up late the same way I used to stay up late, right? But I'm a night person, so I would get so much done like between like 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. right sometimes. And like I have to like work with that about myself. I also know like I don't do well early in the morning. So like if I sit down and start work at like 8 o'clock, let's say my kids were all out of the house at 8 o'clock, which they never are. Like let's say it's at earliest is like going to be 8:30 to 9. Okay. So my brain is still not at like peak capacity earlier in the morning.
Yeah.
And I know that. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just do a workout instead. And when I settle down at like 10 o'clock to start working, my brain works better. So like, I think that also like accepting that, understanding that you have your, I call it like the internal, external time task match, right? Where it's like, I'm not going to be writing copy at 6 p.m. when my kids are all around me and trying to, whatever. I'm not going to be doing it at 5 a.m. before my brain even has time to function. I might do it between like 9 to 11 p.m. And that might work really well for me, or I'll do it between 10 and, 12 a.m. Because that's when my mind is working really well. So matching up your tasks with your mental energy and also like your environment, to me is really, really important. And I think that was one of the things one of my clients was like, that was like, oh my God, a game changer for me. She goes, I was trying to sit down and work in the afternoon. And it was, and I was just so tired and my brain was just foggy and non-functioning. And so when I just like did my chores in the afternoon and then I started working later on in the day, I could think better, and like that was how her brain worked. So I think that's like a really, really important thing as well. Like I actually have a whole masterclass about that called Plan Like a CEO Mom, where I walk through like how I do things. I batch, I break things down. Like there's so many like little tips and stuff. And I also have ADHD and I'm not taking my medication now because I'm pregnant. It is really annoying. It is really hard. I'm definitely not at like peak productive capacity because I cannot focus as well as I
because you've prepared for it, so you already knew.
No, and I know that, and I have to give myself grace about that and be like, okay, and then when the baby's born, I'll go back to taking it and I'll be fine. Like that's it, right? So, so I think also if you a lot of entrepreneurs have ADHD, a lot, and so if you know that you do have that or you suspect you might have it, like go to get it checked out because, listen, my dad's a doctor, like so if there's something for it, if there's going to be something to help it, I'll take it. Like I really think it's not worth suffering and trying to work against your brain chemistry. When you could get, medicinal help. I really believe that. So those are a few things.
On that too. I think that, sometimes a lot of people are very much anti-medication and stuff like that.
I hear.
and there's some aspects to it, right? Like, is it about certain things where you maybe don't need that medication, then maybe you shouldn't, rely on it solely. But is it a good, if you need it, you need it.
If you
So
choose not to use it, that's fine. Like, that's fine. But like,
yeah,
if you could, I guess perform. I don't like that using that word, but like, if you know that like you will just do so much better, you will get so much work
better,
done in
right?
the limited time that you have. Like to
Yeah,
me, as a mom, like time is very precious to me, right?
yeah,
So my work time, like I want to make the most of my work time because if I'm working, I'm not in my, doing stuff in my house. I'm not with my children. I'm not, right? So like if I can take something that will help me make the most of that time, I'll do
hmm
it. I'm not
yeah.
embarrassed of it, you know?
No.
So
And you shouldn't be, because like I said, if you need it, then you need it. It's not,
yeah.
it's there for your benefit. And so I see nothing wrong with that. So my last and most favorite question that I always ask is all about self-care. And since you got so much going on, I would love to know how you are prioritizing a little bit for yourself. What are you doing for you? And like, you know,
Ask me
helping.
another one. No, I'm kidding. No,
This is my least favorite question.
I know. It's like my least. I'm like, dang it. No, I do. Okay. So I really do. Especially to this. It's really funny. When I'm pregnant, I take care of myself so much better. And I'm like,
Mhm.
why is that? What, so you think now you're worth taking care of because you're carrying another human being and all of a sudden it comes out and you're not anymore? But like, I'm just like I'll eat better. I work out. Like I'm working out now, like almost every day because I just feel like I want to make my body like the best and most healthiest possible.
Right.
And I think that, so I mean, for me, my biggest self-care is like reading.
Mhm.
I love reading. Like I've been reading since I was 4 years old. And
Yeah.
I basically picked up a book and like never stopped. And I literally have photos of me reading while doing all kinds of things like rollerblading and loading dishwashers. And I actually bet my husband that I could read while I was giving birth. I could not do it.
That's a lot.
I did it. I read while I was in labor and even like pretty deep into labor. And then when I was about to push my daughter out, he's like, "You want your Kindle?" And I just gave him his face and he was like, "Okay, I'm just asking because you said." I'm like,
Right.
"Not even."
Right.
So um so I really really just enjoy I really enjoy reading. I also like I hate to say this. I don't enjoy exercising necessarily as such. But I feel really good after I do it. So it's really worth it to me. And I started doing these really great workouts, short workouts by Kim Perry. She's really great. And she has like pregnancy workouts. And they're great because they're like very, very short. And you could do like whatever, 2 rounds or 3 rounds or 4 rounds if you want, like however many you need. So I feel like even if I did like 3 rounds of 5 minutes, I'm like, you know what? Like
It's
I
better
did
than
something
nothing.
for myself today. And I took care
Right.
of myself today. So a few things that I do for self-care. So like first of all, before I work, I really do my best. Like I have my tea in the morning. I can't drink coffee when I'm pregnant, not because I'm not allowed to, but because like I actually can't stomach it. It's really annoying because I was very tired for like a good month because I couldn't even like smell it. So I have like my tea and I do my journaling. I have this really nice playlist that I listen to while I'm doing my journaling, and I started doing breath work also like for like 10 minutes or so, which feels really, really good. And I really try to like give myself time to like read and just time to, not work. Because my tendency will be like if I'm kind of in the zone,
Mhm.
I'll work late into the night because like just I'm in the zone. Like I don't resent it, but it will naturally happen because that's when my mind is most awake and everything. And so I really try to like give myself like a cutoff where I'm like, no, if you want to like go into bed, read from bed, um, try to do that. And yeah, and really just like spending time with friends. We don't get together as much as we'd like to, but getting together with my sisters as well, which is really, really nice. I have one sister who lives in the area, another one who's moving to the area in May.
Yeah.
So that's like really, really nice. And like yeah, I guess for me, like I don't subscribe to these like, oh, I have to have my morning routine. Like your morning routine is like an hour long, right? Because like let's be real, like
Mhm.
we don't have an extra random hour to just do unless you wake up early. You could wake up early if you want to. I don't want to. So
Right. Right.
so I will, but I really try to like really be very intentional before I start working to doing the journaling and really just getting it all out. And like usually I start, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have time for this. But then I start
Mhm.
like writing and I'll fill up like 4 pages, of like
Yeah.
stuff and thoughts and ideas and things. And like it really, really, really does help me because it gets so much out of my head. I don't know if you noticed, but I speak very fast. I'm from New York. Like I live my life at like 2x speed. So my mind is always racing, especially I guess maybe ADHD too. I don't
Right.
know. But my mind's always racing. It's always full of like ideas and thoughts and stuff. And so this really helps me just kind of really slow down. And like I like having like my tea and I make it like a thing, and I have like my morning playlist, which Spotify gave me. It gave me this random day list one day, and I was like, I love this music. This is so great. So I saved it, and now it's like my journaling thing, and the breath work as well. I really try to make time for that every single day, and really like the working out and like walking and stuff. Like I'll bring my daughter to school on the bus, but I walk back so I have like some fresh air.
Yeah.
And that really, really helps me. Like I really feel like it makes a difference to my day when I was out in the morning than when I just like send, I'm like, can you just bring her to school? And my husband goes, it's more convenient for me for sure. But like, I feel like I don't have like that same start to the day. So yeah. So really just incorporating those basic things, and just letting myself have time to read. And I will just,
Mhm.
again, like I sound like obsessed, but like I'm currently reading like probably 4 or 5 books
I love it.
at the moment. So
Yeah.
I have like one self-development book and then one like fantasy book and then I have a random historical romance novel and then I have like a Kindle Unlimited something that and I just kind of like cycle through and um
I
yeah.
love that too. I love to read. I like to listen to audiobooks also and, various podcasts and stuff too. But I find myself listening more than reading because when my kids were younger, I used to read, actual physical books all the time. And then when they were toddlers, they always wanted to take my book or like move my book out of the way. And so I started reading on my phone, so that they wouldn't realize that I wasn't paying attention to them, I guess. I don't know.
I know I also
And
read a lot on my phone or yeah, I have a Kindle, but I also have a Kindle app on my phone. So I read a lot on my phone also. Yeah.
yeah, but there's some books that I will buy intentionally that are physical books versus the ones that are electronic. And the reason why I do that is especially if they have any exercises in there or there's like prompts or anything like that. I want the actual physical book for those
Yeah.
versus the ones. So since you mentioned like self-help, like do you have a favorite self-help book that you like recommend?
Oh God. I'm like, gosh, tell me to pick a favorite child. I think my favorite one, really, and it's like such a typical one, is The Big Leap. Like that really,
That's
like
good.
that was like I go back to it like at least twice or 3 times a year or
I
something.
love
Cause it like it's very basic, but it really, really, really helps me. Um, it just really helps me. It's kind of like be able to identify like when I might be just self-sabotaging. I'm like, I know, I totally self-sabotage. Like my coach is like, yeah, like you try to make things harder for yourself. It's like you believe like it's like you're like addicted to like struggling. And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
because a lot of things have been really hard for me in my life. And so that's just what I'm used to doing. And if things are
Right.
working really well, I'm like, what's wrong? Like, what's going
Right.
on?
What's happening
Yeah.
next? Mine,
So
I think
I I
go
recognize
ahead.
that.
My favorite is You Are a Badass. That's like one of the first.
That was also one of my first ones.
Yeah, it was like one of my first ones. And it really, my first coach, when I first started my business, she told me, and, straight away, she said, you have a mindset problem. Now, mind you, this was 10 years ago. I had no idea even what mindset was,
Right?
right? So, I started figuring out what it was. And then that's when I got a hold of that book. And it was between the two, the journaling, the affirmations, and reading that book, there was some type of switch that just flipped for me, and it really
Yeah.
helped me. And I think that that's the power of reading and journaling. The two of those together are just like a power couple.
Yeah.
They
No, that's a
really,
really good one too.
yeah.
That's a really good
um
one too.
so just to wrap things up, because I could sit here and talk to you all day long,
I know
but
it's just so fun.
I'm gonna let you go. Where can everyone find you? Like, where are you on this internet?
Okay, so mostly I hang out on Instagram, like I'm doing stories every day. So Instagram at the Yael Bendahan. I'm probably the only Yael Bendahan that is a coach. So if you just find my name on here and search for it, you will find me. So And I also hang out on Facebook a little bit, but mostly on Instagram. I do also have a podcast called Raising Your Business, which is I don't always talk about motherhood, but sometimes I do. But my motherhood stuff is always like kind of intertwined in all of my episodes because everything I teach is like through that lens of like, but how do you do this as a mom? Because like I learned this thing and like I'm like I can't do that. How do I do this as a mom? Right. So it's very, very much focused towards doing business smarter and working smarter and like behind the scenes, and it's cool. I love it. So and you can go to my website. It's currently under construction, but I have a nice little coming soon page and it has some links to a bunch of my stuff as well, where you can find my Instagram, you can find whatever free thing I'm currently offering. Right now it's a challenge. I don't know what it's going to be when this podcast airs. So yeah, please connect with me on Instagram and just shoot me a DM. Let me know that you found me in here. I love chatting in the DMs. Like, again, as a mom, I can't do calls as much. That's why I limit my calls very, very much. But I love doing voice notes in the DMs because that's like where I make so many of my connections. So please reach out to me over there. Love to chat.
Yes. And obviously I'll put all the links down in the description and all of that stuff. So thank you so much for sitting and chatting. It's been a wonderful time getting to know you and learning
Thank
more
you.
about you.
Same. Oh my gosh, this was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
And there you have it. I want to encourage you to remember that being a mom who runs her own business is not easy. We all struggle, but just keep moving forward and don't forget to make time for yourself. As moms, we are usually the first thing to go to the bottom of the list. If you need help planning for the future to create security and stability in your life and business with real solutions, not just sugar-coated suggestions, apply to work with me at ritasuzanne.com/apply.